There was no involvement with Vince and other women. There were no relationships. There was no sexual innuendo. There was not making out with girls on the roster. There was none of that. All of that started when we left. And I remember, bro, watching that early on and saying to myself, is this coming from the writers or is this coming from Vince? Because I'll tell you why, John. I'll tell you why in a million years I would have never wrote that stuff. And you will understand completely what I'm saying. Bro, if I would have ever wrote that stuff for any of those women and they felt uncomfortable with it, whether they had a boyfriend or they had a husband or they were grossed out by Vince, whatever the case may be, if I would have wrote that stuff, I would have known there was no way they could have said no. They would have had to do that. There is no way they could have said no to Vince McMahon. So that's why I never went down that road, because I wouldn't have done that to the women. And I totally understood they could have never said no. So then when we leave, they're doing this like every single week. And I swear that's when I was saying to myself, is this coming from the writers or is this coming from Vince? And then, of course, John, now when you look back 20 years later and all the allegations and all this and all that, and Vince saying on the documentary, who is the real Vince McMahon? Well, I love sex. Okay, Vince. So now you look at all that and you're like, man, bro, like, why? John, I had a role on TV. I was on TV at WCW. Bro, I worked with some of the most beautiful women in the freaking business. I would have never wrote myself in a situation like that because I knew they couldn't say no. I knew they would have to do it. So that's why, man, when I look at all that stuff now, I'm like, man, bro, you really didn't know where Mr. McMahon ended and Vince McMahon started. You know what I'm saying? But these are the things, like, it blows my mind. These are the things nobody talks about. I mean, you can go back and look at the history, and bro, that's the reason why he wanted to buy this documentary back from Netflix. Yep. It was the things that he said that incriminated himself. They didn't paint him in a bad picture. They told this story straight up, bro. There wasn't an agenda. There wasn't a slant. But when he says, man, I got to be honest, sometimes I don't know, at the very end, the confusion between Mr. McMahon and Vince, he says it at the very end. And then throughout it, he's talking about Mr. McMahon's sexual prowess, and then Vince McMahon's sexual appetite. Bro, they're going to have a field day with those clips in court. That's why Vince wanted to buy that back. So that's why I'm saying, bro, and like when he makes the statement, John, about Mr. McMahon and Vince McMahon, John, I swear to you, man, when I first read those tweets, I was like, no way Vince would have tweeted that shit out. Like, absolutely no way. But now I'm saying, well, Mr. McMahon might have tweeted that stuff out. Like, you know what I'm saying? And, bro, that's why he put out the press release and all this stuff. Bro, the producers and the directors and the financial, they did nothing to paint him in a bad light. It was the things that he said that were like, bro, you're literally implicating yourself. It's nothing they're doing. It's what you're saying. Wild stuff, bro. Really, really wild stuff, man.